Too much fire.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire,
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
bamboo fire,
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so. I come home and the pot not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
I come home and the pot not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
I come home and the rice not fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
The rice not fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so. Give me the water, the out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the water, the out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the water, the out of the
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo.
What kind of fire? Hot fire. Too much fire.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
bamboo fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so. I come home and the pot not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
I come home and the pot not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Kellyan Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
Defending ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defending ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. I do it for the love. Him not do it for no money. Straight up. Him attack. Educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch your vibes, it's integrity. Straight up and scuff stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. Grab a seat and sit down, pay attention, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and turn the boom it up already. We have to boom it again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. I do it for the love. Him not do it for no money. Straight up. Him attack. Educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch your vibes. It's integrity. Straight up and scap stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop.
All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening to all of you. My name is Mark Benshop, and welcome to Straight Up. We're going to rock and roll this evening for 1 hour. It's going to be spicy, you know, the usual information that we have for you. We just don't put our hands up. We just don't surrender. We just don't do that at all. Let me just thank you guys for sharing the link, and those of you who haven't done so, I'm sure that once you have a quick 5 or 10 seconds, you can just do that. Share it to a couple of friends and share it on your page. And let's rock and roll this evening. It's Friday. Let's begin. Hey, guess what? These are the individuals who are part of the Commission of Inquiry. The Commission of Inquiry into the 2020, the March 2nd, 2020, general and regional elections. General and regional elections, You know, there is currently a government in place that has been installed. And so, for many of us, or most of us in Guyana, we would describe this particular regime as the installed government. Now, what is it that these three guys are going to find out about this commission of inquiry? It's pretty obvious where it's heading. For those of you who have already been watching for a couple of seconds, I mean, I watched for a couple of minutes and that's it. I couldn't stomach it. Why? Because I know exactly what they are about. This whole commission of inquiry, despite the chairman of the commission of inquiry, not to be mistaken for the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, but the chairman of the commission of inquiry, a Trinidadian who has had his own controversy over a case, I believe, out in Grenada. He has had his own controversy, but we're not going to touch on that controversy at this point in time. And then, you know, there is Carl Singh as well. Back in 2001, Carl Singh was actually appointed. He was appointed by the People's Progressive Party to be the acting Chief Justice. He has acted for many, many years. And you know, there was a controversy over his appointment, Carl Singh's appointment, because according to the Constitution, in order to be appointed into such position, you have to be a legal or you have to be a practicing lawyer for about 7 years. I don't think that he met that requirement. And so there was a bit of controversy over that. Nevertheless, as always, the PPP just doesn't care about the Constitution or the rule of law. And so they appointed Carl Singh as the acting Chief Justice of the Cooperative Judiciary. And while he was Chancellor of the Judiciary, Eon Chang, another controversial figure, was actually the acting Chief Justice. Lots of actors, lots of acting in Guyana. And while Carl Singh in 2001, good evening, Claudette Singh. Carl Singh in 2001, there was a bit of controversy there as to whether he should be the next Chief Justice or Claudette Singh. Or Claudette Singh. There goes Claudette Singh. And here what happened. In 2001, of course, during that time, she would have already ruled on the 1997 elections petition. She ruled on the elections petition, and guess what? The PPP and Jack Dale and those guys never liked what that ruling was. They never liked her. And she is of the view, even to this day, they just don't like her. They just don't like her. So it's something that I want to get into, but not tonight. It's not relevant for tonight. It is relevant maybe on some other occasion. Not tonight. Certainly not tonight. I promise you guys this. I promise you guys this, that I want to talk about that because it will take me right back into 2001. Right back into 2001. And my meeting with Carl Singh. Oh yeah, I would love to talk about my meeting with Carl. You guys love to hear about my meeting with Carl Singh? Okay, and what about my meeting with Claudette Singh? You know, I've stayed quiet for a long time. A long, long time I've stayed quiet. But I'm getting impatient. Sometimes, you know, you give someone a long rope to hang themselves. And I believe in that theory at times. But let us move on, though. Let us not talk about 2001 and the fact that Carl Singh was appointed the acting Chief Justice of Guyana under questionable circumstances. Under questionable circumstances. And if Jerome Khan is watching, good evening to you, Jerome Khan. Good evening to you. Shh, Mark. Shh. And so Claudette Singh wasn't too happy because she didn't become the Chief Justice. She didn't. And you know, in all fairness, at that time, at that time, she was more qualified, far more qualified than Kar Singh, by far more qualified than Kar Singh. But because of her elections petition ruling, Jagdish shut her out. And she lived with that. She lived with that for 20-something years. 20-something years. She carried that baggage all the way into GCOM with her. All the way into GCOM with her. I know the whole story. You know what? In 2001. Claudette, if you're watching, you know. And I was there all throughout, or for the most part, of the 2020 general and regional elections. And I've listened to all of the sad stories that Claudette Singh spoke about. All of the sad stories. And so when I speak, I don't want to talk because of some sort of vendetta, some sort of personal reason or whatever. Country comes first. And if people can put their self-interest in front of the country and pretend as though they're packaging it as democracy and free and fair elections and transparency, when in fact I know better. If the opposition doesn't want to speak, obviously they don't want to speak. Some of them in the opposition for over 1 year, 2 years have urged me not to speak about the matter. Some of them, they know who they are, but I give them that chance. I give them that chance. But let me move on to something else for now, right? Let me move on to something else for now, because a lot of people are being duped. A lot of people are being taken advantage of by politicians on all sides. Ordinary folks are being taken advantage of. Sometimes when you see something and you hear something, you've got to dig a little deeper to understand exactly what is happening around you. And this explains this coalition with AFC. Obviously, AFC's heart is not in the coalition any longer. They're pretending to be. So don't be surprised that they walk away from the coalition. They're just waiting. They're sitting in the grass. And mind you, I use the term, they're sitting in the grass, waiting on just the right time to wiggle away and leave everybody else in the coalition hanging. They will do that. We have seen the evidence, and we see that it is not a good marriage. It is a sour marriage because they are seldomly seen together. They don't have press conferences together. And some may argue that they're coalition, yes, and they're different parties, and they're allowed to do different things. Fair enough. But when was the last time you see them together? When was the last time you see them going into communities together? They are still a coalition. They're still legally binded together where they are presenting themselves as a coalition. So now if they don't want to be a coalition any longer, then they should do exactly what Ramjatan wants to do. And others want them to walk away and stop making the supporters a bunch of idiots. Stop making people fools. Okay. That's not what I came on to talk about tonight, but that's not what the operator has given us. Claudette Singh. Claudette, good evening. You know, maybe soon you should do the right thing. Either speak up about what you know, speak the truth, and stop running behind closed doors and trying to call people and present yourself as though you're an angel in all of this elections fiasco. When in fact, I know, you know, and there are others who know that you are not an angel in all of this. Not at all. Then again, it will come out soon. The truth is already out there. Stop pretending that you don't know what the truth is, Claudette. Stop it. I've asked you that several days now. You're still around saying that I'm a liar. All manner of things. You need to stop it, because if I were to intensify this of threats, you've been a judge for years. And I can say this to you, No amount of threats can ever, ever move me. None whatsoever. And I'm just letting you know that right off the bat. I know a lot, and may have to resign with immediate effect. But having said all of that, in any other part of the world, Claudette Singh, there would have been an investigations into Claudette Singh, and she would have been asked to step aside. But no, she wants to be brazen. She wants to get vexed that I accuse her of calling the police on Kadaki. Just issue a statement to say you never called the police and show us your phone records. That's all you need to do. It's an allegation. Just show us your phone record and say, look, you didn't call the police on Kadaki, Amsterdam. Just say that. It's okay. You're not above the law, and you're not an individual that nobody can't ridicule you or nobody can't say something about you. You're not. You're a simple, ordinary human being who's trying to hustle and survive. That's what it is. You can have 2-3 estates. It is irrelevant. You're surviving now. In an honest way. This is not to say you're being dishonest, right? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not even hinting at that. I'm saying that circumstances would lead people to believe, or they have the perception that you didn't do something right. And that is still on my mind. Hence my reason for wanting you to explain whether what you did was right, or what you did was as a result of duress. What you did was as a result of being threatened. Of course, you and I, Claudette, spoke about the threats. You mentioned the businessman's, quote-unquote, businessman's name. You mentioned the individual who paid the PPP for Mercury. And many of you know Mercury. You'd like to know where that money came from. Claudette Singh dropped a bombshell at me by giving a hint or assuming where the money came from that paid for Mercury. Let's move away from that for a moment. I want to talk about the Commission of Inquiry. This guy is Edgar. Edgar who? Let me see if some of you guys know who he is as we begin to start talking about the Commission of Inquiry. About the Commission of Inquiry. Let me see if you guys know who this guy is. His name is Thomas, right? So he was one of those that stepped up there at the Commission of Inquiry. And obviously, he's going to say whatever the PPP wants him to say. He's not going to tell you guys the truth as to what really transpired on that day. It is obvious that he wants to protect the PPP. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Just like these guys have been placed there to protect the PPP. That's exactly what they have been placed there for. Let us not run away from reality. Let us not beat around the bush. The PPP is paying these guys hundreds of millions of dollars, your tax dollars, so that they can arrive at a decision, come back, and you know what that decision is going to be? They're going to say that there's sufficient evidence that basically the coalition did wrong things. That is what they have been paid to do. Forget about what the chairman of that Commission of Inquiry has said, that they're transparent and believes in transparency and get to the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. If they want to hear the truth, well, that this guy would not have turned up there. And so his name is Thomas, Edgar Thomas. Edgar Thomas. He knew that instruction was to rep from each party. They had to have reps from each party in the building, Ashman's building. And by the way, it is called Ashman's building. But do you guys know who actually owns that building now? Let me see. You guys do the research, because a lot of our journalists in Guyana don't want to do their homework. Who actually owns Ashman's now? Ashman's, that building was sold. Let me see if you guys know who bought that building, that they paid a heck of a lot of money. A heck of a lot of money for that building, right? But let's move on. Let's continue. So this guy, Edgar Thomas, now, obviously pro PPP, is going to be singing the PPP song and dance. And he is going to imagine things. And the things that he is going to imagine are basically things that would be in favor of the PPP. That's why the PPP is comfortable with him there. That is why as soon as the PPP was installed into office, guess who they replaced? Guess who they put as the presidential head of the presidential guard? It's this guy, Edgar Thomas. So it's a big payback that is going on. And this is a big conspiracy. If you guys have the puzzle, you have the puzzle in front of you, and you try to fix this puzzle. You put A, B, C, you put it together, you will see exactly where this thing is leading to. A big conspiracy to hijack a nation, to hijack a democracy, to hijack a country, to hijack an elections. Theodore Thomas, Mr. John, was the owner of that building. The building has since been sold. And during the course of elections day time, it was rented out. And so part of GCOM's office was transferred over to Ashman's building. Ashman's building. Find out who owns Ashman's building. So now let's continue with this guy and his fake testimony. In my opinion, his testimony was fake testimony. This is what happened. So Thomas, with his link to the PPP, basically he allowed a host of people, including so-called security guards for Mohammeds and all these other people, to be behind security barriers. He allowed a set of private security firms to break security, SOPs, and all manner of things, hence why he was relieved of his command. He was relieved of his command as a result of that. According to information, mind you, he didn't follow procedure. So because he was released of that, because he was relieved, of his position, bitter blood and all these things boiling up. And so when the PPP got installed into office, right away they brought him back and they placed him as the guy who was the head of the presidential guard. He was in charge of there. All of these things happen at GCOM, at Ashman's building. Look at some of the suspects. Look at some of these guys here, pretending to be fighting for democracy and pretending that they're fighting for their country and they're fighting for Mother Guyana and they need their country back. They had no respect for the policemen. If I had my way, all of them would have been and should have been arrested. Now look at them. They want to break down the door and, speaking of, I wonder if that guy all the way where that arrow is pointed down by one other guy, I wonder if that's Nigel Hines on the other side there. But look at some of the other guys. Look at some of the suspects. They're good businessmen, right? Okay. And so all of these things happen, I'm told, it is because Edgar wasn't certain what his position or he knew what he was doing. So to have Edgar at the Commission of Inquiry into the elections, giving his personal views, and of course defying orders to make it look as though he was there just to do the right thing. He's pro-PPP, I'm told. So what else do you guys expect for him to say at the Commission of Inquiry other than that? He packaged it as though he's speaking the truth. That is how he has packaged it. And his presentation to those PPP-appointed commissioners, those PPP-appointed former judges and so forth to lead the Commission of Inquiry, you guys already know where this is heading. You guys already know what the final decision would be, what it's going to be like. And there's this guy, Mohammed. His name is being featured, and of course, Claudette Singh is well familiar with the Mohammeds and so forth. She is familiar with them. We have had conversations, Claudette, about them. for now, right? I know how you feel because you told me how you felt then. I don't know if that has since been changed. But since we are at that, Claudette Singh, as a result of all of these things and death threats and so forth, she was given police security, extra police security. Leading up to after the recount process, Claudette Singh realized she suddenly got this premonition or something that, oh, the police want to hurt her. She just suddenly got this thing about her that the police actually want to hurt her. And so she was not comfortable with members of the Guyana police force being her security. She wasn't comfortable. But you know what Claudette did? She asked that those security guys for the police be removed. Lo and behold, removed and replaced by, you guys will have a shock of your life. A shock of your life. But hear what? I wouldn't tell you guys just yet. Use your imagination. Remove the police security and replaced by, That's all I wish to say at this time. But let's get back to this guy. This guy testified a whole bunch of baloney. After he was removed from the command because he wasn't taking instructions. He seemed to have been taking instructions from the PPP or maybe those unscrupulous so-called security guys from security firms and so forth, seemed comfortable taking instructions from them. And so this guy was actually replaced by Superintendent of Police, Azor, who took over, and he was able to clear the building and so forth and so on, right? So that was the guy that took over and did proper police work. And so this is a little background story of this guy, Thomas. A little background story of this guy, Thomas. But before we get in, we want to bring in two guys. Wayne Caesar, our operator, said that they are ready, and J.R. Crawford. But before we get to them, the headline would show, and you know, right away he rushed to his friend Mohammed there, right? And they went, and his first Juma, Muslim, and his first Juma, he rushed to his friend's side. And again, we're trying to get this puzzle to you guys. We're getting the puzzle to you guys. Were actually hijacked. Look, they've invaded. The invasion of GCOM's headquarters. The invasion, it was actually condemned, rightly so, by the Guyana Trades Union Congress. Rightly so by the Guyana Trades Union Congress. They condemned it. Everybody else stayed quiet. All those from the ABC countries and so forth, they stayed quiet. Quiet like church mouse, quiet. But while they remain quiet, let's go to 2019. 2019, when 2019, when the PPP were in the streets protesting. Take a look and see the difference of how they were treated then and how they're treating protesters now of these gangsters. You notice these guys, right? You notice them. They're protesting. They're doing every single thing And they know very well that the elections were just around the corner, but they were protesting. Everyone has a right to protest. In fact, Todd Paul, and all these guys are out protesting peacefully. No police brutality, no arrest, no taking away of their bullhorns, nothing, absolutely nothing. You guys are seeing the difference, right?
Election! No! Election!
All of them. Some were brought in. Wherever.
Election! No! Election! No!
Election. Wait a minute. I'm wondering if you look at that young lady at the back there with the red shirt and the glasses. She looks like a lawyer. Lawyers have a right to be part of political parties. Lawyers have a right to protest. You know, we see lawyers protesting these days. Take a look at Sella, whatever. But look, she's out there protesting. She's not afraid to protest. She's not afraid to identify herself with the PPP at all. She's just not afraid of doing so. I don't know, but these days we saw a couple of lawyers out in front of couple of lawyers protesting. Good to see them protesting on other matters, not just when it hits home to them and one of their own just detained for a few minutes, which is wrong. And we have condemned that here. It is wrong, absolutely wrong. It should never be condoned. But lawyers should not just come out when it hurts one of their own, one of their colleagues. So many injustices happening in the country. We want to see the lawyers take a position, stand up. Lots of lawyers during the civil rights struggle did just that. Look at this lawyer. Is not afraid to join the PPP and protest. She's walking around protesting. And this was a lawyer who worked right there at the Attorney General's chamber during the coalition time. Right there. You see the difference? You guys see what is happening in the country? And they don't want us to speak up. They don't want us to talk. We have two gentlemen, no stranger, ought to be no stranger to you guys, Wayne Caesar and J.R. Crawford. Wayne Caesar, good evening to you guys. You guys see the hypocrisy where PPP supporters are allowed to protest peacefully, but as soon as PNC supporters do the same, have the same loudhailer, they're arrested, they're harassed, and they're locked up. Your take, Mr. Caesar, on the hypocrisy. I've just shown you example of a hypocrisy there.
Yeah. Good evening, Mark. Good evening, viewers and listeners in Guyana and the diaspora. Yeah, well, Mark, what we have there, we have we're talking about two different governments there. Okay, we're talking about the coalition, which of course stood by democracy, and then we're talking about the PPP, a government that I consider to be a dictatorship because of their methods of and their modus operandi at the present moment. So during the time of the coalition, everybody's free to come and go to Guyana, do whatever they want. You want to protest, you can protest. You know, it is your right to protest. Just do it orderly, do not damage property. And that was fine with the coalition. But with the PPP, you know, a good example is a few days ago, Mr. Kidaki Amsterdam was arrested. And I was looking at, you know, the video of the whole arrest and everything. And I saw the guy in the police force. I saw the officers, them with some big guns. I'm like, you know, where are they going with these big guns? You know, it's a few people protesting, and it's not people that they don't know. You know, they all know Mr. Amsterdam. He's no threat. He's no harm, you know, but all these big guns to arrest him, you know. So Ghana it's right now we're sitting, I know we called it a creeping dictatorship before, but no, this is a full-fledged dictatorship, and you could throw that in also with Guyana being a police state at the moment. But
Full-fledged dictatorship indeed. We'll stop you there at police.
Okay.
police state at the moment, full-fledged dictatorship. Mr. Crawford, you see the hypocrisy there. Your take. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Mark, there's a saying, freedom is a prison for many. Under the coalition, you saw that everyone's right was respected as per the Constitution. With other governments of recent times, you are not seeing the same thing meted out to the people, where whatever is guaranteed under the Constitution, people, should allow to speak their minds if they're not pleased with something. When you have people being muzzled because voicing their concern about something that is not right for the country, you know that the dictatorship and the democracy is at stake here, and these are things that we have to guard against as a nation. And this is where our citizens must be able to be a little bit honest with themselves, as to say, look, under the coalition, we as opposition to the coalition were able to protest without being disrespected or our rights being trampled upon. But here now you have the PPP installed there, and you cannot have the same rights afforded to the people who do not subscribe to the PPP's party. So these are things that we should be looking at, and also our human rights group should be pointing out these things to the international people, that under the coalition for the 5 years, we saw a resurgence of democracy, restoration of people's right to voice their displeasure. And I mean, you could look at different instances. Even in Linden, when people were upset with the then coalition people, they had the right to voice their concern. Nobody was upset with them, and that's their democratic right.
We stick at the democratic right there. If you're now joining us, 43 minutes after 8 o'clock. My name is 9 o'clock. Sorry, my name is Mark Benshop, and welcome to Straight Up. Wayne Caesar is with us. J.R. Crawford is with us. What is your take? Heading back to Mr. Caesar. What is your take briefly on this whole commission of inquiry?
All right, Mark, I'm going to simply put it this way. The commission of inquiry is a bundle of garbage. We want petition 99 to be heard. We don't want to hear anything about a commission of inquiry where, the PPP is going to have their cabal. Everybody there is colluding with the PPP. Everyone that is going to be on this commission of inquiry is colluding with the PPP. And what this whole commission of inquiry is for, Mark, is to paint a picture, into the heads of the Guyana people. This is what this whole commission of inquiry is about. It's about nothing else. Mark, I'm not even going to look at this, because this is just garbage. That's my answer to that.
All right, being garbage it is. Let's head over to Mr. Crawford. Your take, sir, on the commission of inquiry.
Mark, I may be wrong, but I think that the commission of inquiry should not have been set in motion until a petition or both petitions were heard and there was a verdict, and if the verdict was not pleasing. This, in my mind, is putting the cart before the horse. Now, you want to know what's wrong with the election, or as a president installed. Why not let the courts decide on the petition? Why are you afraid of letting the petition be heard in the courts? Whatever this commission findings are, it wouldn't affect the fact that the election was tainted and heavily. Why the monies that you're paying these three guys for something that we all know what the end result is going to be? Why not take that and subsidize the price of sugar, so the citizens can,
we've been subsidizing sugar in the arena of billions of dollars. They don't subsidize
Well,
bauxite industry and other. They don't pay the
no,
teachers
but
them proper salary.
what I'm
But every minute, Crawford, Mr. Crawford, it is dead.
no,
DEAD,
no, no, no,
dead,
no, no,
sir.
no, no, no,
Why
no.
should
Hold
we
on. No,
subsidize billions?
I'm
One
not saying.
second. Well, I
I'm
will
not.
turn your mic off. I will turn your mic off,
Yes, you
Mr.
can.
Crawford.
No, you're not allowing me to
Go ahead.
finish. I'm not talking about.
Billions
No,
of
no.
dollars, Mr. Crawford.
Hold on
Go ahead.
there, Mr. Bishop. Hold on.
Go ahead,
I'm not
Mr.
talking
Gentleman. Go
about
ahead.
Cisnarine's failed productive methods. I'm speaking about the price of sugar on the shelves in the country for the citizens. This money that we're paying these three guys is a waste of money. Why not help the citizens to reduce the strain of cost of living? That we know we are getting sugar from overseas being sold in our markets. The price for a tray of eggs. Put that money to use to help the citizens. Let the courts hear the petition. Why are you running from the petition if you think that you have won the election? If you let the election be
That's a
heard,
good point. That's a good point. I'll turn your microphone volume up. That's a good point.
yeah, turn it up.
They are running from the petitions. We all know this. By now, we all know this, Mr. Crawford. It is because the PVP has rigged the elections, and the petitions will expose them. So they don't want the petitions to be heard. They prefer to spend hundreds of millions of dollars by putting three blind mice to deal with something that we already know is PPP propaganda.
I have said it before the elections were held. Some ways how they were going to rig the elections. And I have maintained that. I've seen certain things. I have proof of people who were deceased and they voted. There were people who are on the list were not in the country or alive. That's the reason why the PPP, they are running from it. If you had the country's interests at heart, let the petition be heard, whatever the results are. If you are declared the winner of the elections, then it gives the nation time to heal, to come together, and for us to drive to be a better country tomorrow.
They don't want the PPP.
But by holding the petition back, you're creating a hostile environment which eventually will explode. And innocent people are going to get hurt.
You see, Parker Avram has made a good point, and I agree with Parker. The coalition slept while the PPP were stuffing ballot boxes. I repeat.
Yeah, definitely.
The coalition slept while the PPP were stuffing ballot boxes. That is what they did. They stuffed the ballot boxes. And the reason why they don't want the elections petitions to be heard is because this will come out that they have stuffed the ballot boxes, Mr. Crawford and Caesar. Look at this. You mentioned dead voters, 61 dead voters, absent voters, 4,864. Stuffed ballot boxes, 47 ballot boxes without documents, 1,278 missing oaths of identity. So help me God. And then people want to say that the elections results were free and fair. Mr. Caesar, take a bite of this here, man. Corruption.
Well, Mark, all right, when we look at the elections, I am not going to just sit down and blame the PPP alone here. They're not the only ones that are complicit in this whole rigging scheme. Okay? The international community, the U.S. ambassador to Guyana was foot on foot with the PPPC. The CCJ, Justice Adrian Sanders, should be ashamed of himself, totally ashamed of himself. Carrie Cum, they were all involved in this rigging scheme with the PPP. They were all involved. They were all complicit in this. When you look at the U.S. ambassador to Guyana, she shows no indication that she is a bipartisan ambassador. She shows partisanship in favor of the PPPC. She's always with them. She was there in the Ashman's building with them. What is the ambassador doing there? So the rigging happens now. It's finished and everything, Mark. And now the opposition and all the small parties are requesting a new voters list.
Opposition. Oh, you did mention the opposition. Sorry, I forgot that we do have an opposition. Sorry
Yes,
about that, guys.
yes,
Sorry about that.
yeah. Sometimes we tend to forget, Mark, because I was kind of like watching the show last night, and I felt like
in
if
there
you
for
were
a minute.
done last night.
Stick a pin for a minute, Mr. Caesar.
Okay.
Elections around the corner in the U.S. Do you think the Guyana ambassador, any ambassador from another country, can walk into a polling station and dictate and decide and do things? Do you think Sam Hines could walk in to a polling station?
No,
Do you think so?
Mark, they would mop the floor with him. He's totally in this country.
I don't know. I don't know. You were saying that you were watching the show last night. Sorry about that.
I felt like if you, I felt like if you were the opposition last night.
Well, a lot of us on social media and some on the ground are doing way more than what the opposition should be doing. The opposition folks are afraid to speak out. And we are seeing this, it's evident. Every single day we're seeing it. They are afraid to speak out. The opposition leader wants to be politically correct. And he wants to sit at press conference and strategize because they feel that they are politically correct. You don't run an opposition like that. Do you think that Jack Dale and them, when they were in opposition, they were politically correct and they have strategy and they don't want to protest because of what the ruling party would think of them and all manner of nonsense? Too many excuses from these guys in the opposition. And so you're correct. They're not really the opposition. Had it not been for some folks on social media with their megaphones and so forth, or some folks on the ground, there would have been no opposition to the PPP. Let's face reality. Crawford, what's going on with your cousin Claudette Singh? What's happening? In any other part of the world, she would have been asked to resign. But no, she's running behind closed doors, suing with people and talking trash. What is your take on the recent revelations that I have shown here? Your take, sir.
Look, Mark, first and foremost, I must say I do apologize as a relative to the people of this country.
You gotta apologize again.
Well, I mean, as a relative.
But thank you. Your apology is accepted. Go ahead.
It's such a slap in the face to all Guyanese of the behavior and the action and the denial. You know, if at the time that you're under pressure, you know, the law is what you live by for so many years and gain, you know, a status in our society. If you felt that you could not carry out your duties as per the law, why not step away then? It was easier to step away than to sit and get yourself in an embarrassing situation. And also at the time, you're putting future generation that aren't even born yet under so much pressure and disadvantage with what has transpired, knowing that the country was at a turning point and it needed to be in the hands of folks that genuinely would care for the people and not for a selective few. When you look into history down the road, Claudette would have been the person who sent Guyana up the creek without a paddle. And saying so, she should have stood firm on her decision. If the PPP were not in agreement with the declaration, let them come to the courts, not the other way around, and eventually birth Order 60 out of the Constitution. And then, you know, speaking of the Constitution, I am still to see where the CCJ has been given an unlimited jurisdiction into all matters pertaining to our country. I've seen dictation on civil and criminal matters, but I've not seen anything as they being the supreme apex court for the electoral matters. It's talk about the full court or the appeals court. I don't know if you can help to clarify that aspect. I am of the belief that the CCJ did insert themselves wrongfully because of certain alliances and has really, really disrupted our democracy and disrespected our constitution.
You know, I point well taken. I saw a comment earlier by a good friend of ours from Allen's Village, Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis actually said that, and that is so true, that this whole farce of a commission of inquiry headed by those three blind mice is basically to set the stage for local government elections. So the results will come out just around the time when there will be local government elections. And it's basically to put that monkey wrench on the coalition parties. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for that brilliant thought of yours. Your take, Wayne Caesar, on the timing of because the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry did say that around March, mid-March, just around the time that we'll have local government elections, that the results of the COI will be out. Your take on the timing.
Yeah, well, Mark, the PPP is in government right now. So they're going to strategize and have everything timed right where they're going to make everything occur where they want it to occur, according to their strategic methods that they have in place, right? So we are going to local government election with the same list, right? So obviously the PPPC will have a great chance again with this bloated list again. And I think the opposition said that they would not be contesting local government elections.
What is your take on that they wouldn't be contesting the local government elections?
Well, you could look at that, Mark, with a double-edged sword, right? You can say, well, okay, we don't want to contest local government elections because we want a new list, and we just emphatically, it's just not going to contest local government election. And then on the other hand, we probably need to. But then, Mark, you got to look at it. You don't know if the PPP already have that rigged also. Right? You don't know that. We don't know that.
Well, it could be in the form of, we already see that the list is bloated of 750,000 people that consists the population. Of the population, 650 something thousand are registered voters. It doesn't make sense at all. According to statistics by the U.S. State Department, the population of Guyana is just about 550,000 people. Just 550,000 people. They have more Guyanese outside of Guyana than they have inside. And if you have a population just about 500 plus thousand, maybe close to 600,000, then the the list of registered voters would not be more than 350,000. So that list is heavily padded. In fact, the coalition, when they won in 2015, they won with a list that was obviously padded also, with 615 or 630,000 plus voters on that list. The coalition had that opportunity to cleanse the list, to clean it up, completely clean it up. During this, but I suspect that we're getting to that. But the list was padded since then as well. It's padded even more now. And what you're saying, Mr. Caesar, makes sense. That the PPP is comfortable with local government elections because they know that they have padded the list even more with Venezuelans, maybe some Brazilians, thousands upon thousands of them, some Bangladeshi, some Indian nationals, and all these other people. And mind you, the other thing, if you're a member of a CARICOM state and you reside in Guyana for over a year, you have a right to register to vote in Guyana. The only CARICOM country that does that. You cannot go in Trinidad and live for 1 year and then you're allowed to vote. You cannot go in Barbados and live for 1 year and then you're allowed to vote. But you can go in Guyana for 1 year and then you can register to vote. Utter nonsense. Mr. Crawford.
Mark, as for the list, I think we'll see a strange turn of events after the holidays, the Christmas holidays, where the PPP would agree to sanitize the list or come forward with a new list, and the local election would be pushed back. The aim of the local election is to push the election further down into the year. And with that, doing that, it means election in 2025 on their part. As for the opposition not wanting to contest the local election, that would be political suicide for the leader. At no time must a major political party or major political force not contest an election. That something is wrong right there. You're not putting the people first, and the people is the party. You must seek to make sure you have representation at the lowest level of government. So anybody who refuses to go to the polls for any local election should not be any major leader. And I don't think that Norton would do that. I don't think he would make that mistake and not be in contention. What I am not seeing though is the urgency to mobilize across the country, across the board, all of the groups, to have people educated, brought up to speed on the necessity to be at the polls for the local election and the long-term implication of not voting in such an election. Many of the coalition voters are not aware of the value of turning up for local election. They are the one-hit wonders. We go big or go home, and that's for the big election. And that's a big mistake. And I think there must be a team that is there to specialize with people who understand the electoral laws and values, to be on the ground to educate the citizens, regardless if it's our supporters or not. So people will start to learn the value of partaking into local elections.
People should understand the value indeed. In 2018, I believe the local government elections held then, the PPP got about 60-something%. And that was when the coalition was actually in office. And they were sleeping. People were telling them that they were sleeping. They weren't concerned about that. They were concerned mainly about people like me, who they didn't want to get into some sort of local government office, maybe the mayor of Georgetown. So they spent most of their time and their energy fighting me down, as opposed to fighting the PPP down. And in doing so, the PPP walked away 2 years after they got into office. And congrats to the coalition. They were able to hold 2 local government elections. 2. Unlike the PPP dictatorship that didn't have, only had 1 in 23 years. 1 local government elections. But the coalition fell asleep at the wheel. They weren't paying attention to local government elections. They weren't paying attention to some of their stronghold areas where they should have gone out and do more and pay a lot of attention, not only to stronghold, but they were paying attention to the country. But they had to pay some special attention to areas that were deprived for 20-something years by the PPP regime. And so they didn't do that. And the PPP chewed them up in the local government elections while the PPP was in the opposition. Now they have oil money and all sorts of other money given to them by money launderers, possibly, and drug lords, possibly, and gold smugglers, possibly, like how they got their money to pay Mercury. I don't know. I don't see the PPP. I know I've held a different view, but I don't see the PPP wanting to postpone local government elections in order to facilitate the main opposition. What will happen? They will have small groups popping up, and those small groups will take the place of the opposition at the polls if the main opposition parties do not partake. And we will see some things that we haven't seen before in Guyana. So this is something that the opposition as a coalition, the opposition as a real coalition should sit down and have discussions amongst themselves and bring in experts as well, because they can strategize. Obviously, their strategy isn't working. They need to bring in individuals with better ideas at this time. Mr. Caesar, what else you guys want us to talk about? Unless you have something else to add about local government elections.
I do, Mark.
Go ahead, sir.
I do. I strongly believe that the people of Guyana deserve a third viable option. You know, they seem to be stuck between a rock and a hard.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Mr. Caesar. We oftentimes believe that the third force is oftentimes a better option. If we can't fix what we have now and keep jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping from house to house, home to home, this to this, it is never going to be stable. The time is ripe for the coalition to get back to the table, to fix what they have. A third force wouldn't fix the problem, you know. A third force may prevent a party from getting a majority in government. But that doesn't mean that. So a third force is not necessarily just, oh gosh, it's like a light at the end of the tunnel and a third force will save Guyana. A third in the name of ANOG, which is basically a tongue disease, a mouth disease. ANOG will not even get half a seat next elections, as much as they would love to push themselves up as a third force. So we got to be careful with the third force, you know. Who is heading the third force? Who are the people behind the third force? And if that third force team up with the coalition, maybe we'll get somewhere. But go ahead with your third force. Go ahead with your third force, sir.
Yeah, well,
let me hear you.
Well, Mark, I say this all to say that third force could be a driving factor that would get everybody on their toes and actually get them working. You know, because we've been preaching on this show, Mark. Let's be honest here now. We have been preaching to the coalition on this show. You know, I'm kind of like tired talking, you know, to the MPs, you know, to get out there, get on the ground. No, we're talking about local government elections next March.
You know why the MPs don't listen? Most of you know why they don't listen? They think they know it all. They think they have arrived. They think they're the best politicians on the block. They know it all. They prefer to be at meetings in their condition office. They don't give a damn about the people any longer. Look at how one particular person who's an MP, who's supposed to be the shadow minister of Home Affairs, has been absent for months now. She sits there as the general secretary of the party. She doesn't want to resign, and Aubrey Norton doesn't have the balls to fire her. I'm upset. Let's hear from Mr. Crawford, and we get back to you, Mr. Caesar.
Mark, I'm in total agreement with you with the shadow minister, MP there, minister, and the general secretary. Norton has to understand that he is not the leader of a private entity. It's a public entity. It's made up of the people of Guyana. And if you do not have proper representation, you're doing a disservice to your employers. The PNC is not something that is transported to Norton. If you have a rogue element in operation, you have to get that person replaced because the people are not being represented properly. You're dealing with an opposition with an opposition force that is known to have two bags of tricks. You have to be on the ball. If Norton cannot take this bold step and replace the general secretary of the party, it means that there is no drive for membership on the younger voters who have come of age. You're not pursuing independent voters or the crossover voters, I would say. Then you are not doing the coalition nor the party that you've been elected as leader any service. It means then that the person who the folks have elected in December is not concerned about what the employers want for their alliances. And that if Norton continues this way, Norton will be out at the next general election.
Why do you
And more
suppose?
likely,
Why do you
he's going to be
suppose?
out.
Why do you suppose the party? You're correct. They have PNC elections, party elections to re-elect or elect a new leader next year. I doubt that they would have that. Mr.
Mark,
Norton will want to push it back. But why do you
well,
think that he's afraid to fire this woman? She should be.
I am
fired.
going to tell you this now. If the PNC does not have its Congress next year, woe unto them. I am telling you that.
Why do you
Because
suppose
you're
Mr.
not
Norton,
having
why do you suppose
Pardon me?
Mr. Norton is afraid to fire this this weak general secretary?
Well, because he made a bad choice, and because of our ethnicity, he doesn't want to touch it, being afraid to come across as a racist. He made the mistake. He did not do his homework. That position required somebody who is a grounds person. Yes, I have called him on that issue, but that's beside the point. This is the particular position that he did not do proper research. And again, the position was given because of a so-called alliance on being on his team. This is what happens when you pick on a buddy system and not people who are qualified or who are able to grow the party. She could have been a chairperson or something else, but not a general secretary. And it's the same thing with the treasurer of the party. It's detrimental to the party in many ways. These are the mistake of a person who should not be at the top. They may be in the executive branch of a leadership because of their qualities in certain areas, but not as a total in control person. I don't care who hates me. I've called it. I know that this would have backfired. And we're seeing that we are not having a forceful leadership. And this is the first time I've seen former colleagues who were at war with me last year and that have now saw the light or seen the light. And they're calling it the same way I called it prior to that leadership Congress. You have to know someone, you have to go into their minds to see what is best there. You can't have someone who is more self-observed to be there for the people's interest. They are acting as if it's a private entity. Guyana has evolved from more of an African and an Indian into a multi-ethnic society. You have to put someone who will appeal to all walks of life so you can grow the party, grow the institution. We are not seeing a growth in the PNC membership. What we are seeing are people who are getting fed up with the lack of effort, with the laziness, and they're either disenchanted with the system or they're drifting away, or as we've seen in some cases where people are bought and paid for by some crumbs, all because there isn't a plan to get to the people, connect to the ground. I don't care what we're hearing from the OLO press conference and all these things. That is not the real. When the leader is going to say that if they go to the election, they're going to win by a landslide, that is a dream. And you know what you do to people when you go to a polls and you get whipped? You destroy their confidence because you have led them to believe everything is hunky-dory. This is not a time to play games with people's future.
We got your point. You got your point, Mr. Crawford. 14 minutes after 10 o'clock. Let's move over to one other subject before we close out for tonight's program. Let's start with Mr. Caesar. As we heard from the Commission of Inquiry, there was this report by the Chief Elections Officer, Mr. Vishnu Prasad, who said that there is no evidence, there's no video evidence, there's nothing at all to show that what transpired during or after elections day. Nothing whatsoever at all. Do you find that strange that there's no video evidence at all? Mr. Caesar?
Actually, Mark, I don't, because that is pretty consistent with the PPPC. If we can recall, we had the whole Dion Bascom press conference that we could not find a recording of that press conference also. So I am not surprised one bit that they cannot find the video recording for the Ashman's building. No, I'm not surprised. And then what has transpired there, and the people who are there, you know, they wouldn't want the international community to watch that video over and over again, right? Because we had the US ambassador there. I'm quick to point that person out because that person is very important, very instrumental in leading the PPP to where they are today. Okay? Right now, Mark, we are sitting in Guyana with the wrong government in power, period.
We see the consistency, and thanks again, Mr. Mangru. We see the consistency here of no evidence, no video. We saw with the Dion Bascom, Detective Bascom, whose situation is still a hot issue, and we got to try to seek to have Mr. Bascom on the show to talk his story. We don't want it to be in the back burner. It has to be kept alive because justice must be served. And you cannot have individuals who believe that because they have money that they can buy their way out of situation, assuming that that's the situation here. But we'll get back to that on some other occasion. But Mr. Mangru has a point that no evidence, no video evidence in the Bascom situation. There seems to be a pattern now, as you said, Mr. Caesar, with the PPP to destroy evidence. Now, this is strange, and they can't blame Lowenfield, Mr. Lowenfield, for that. I am almost certain because the camera was specifically set up by the IT section and in the front area. The IT section, the IT guy who is now a senior official at GCOM, Mr. Giddings, should be the one answering what has happened to the video evidence. What has really happened? Who removed the cameras? They got to have that. I am sure that the evidence exists. And I can put my head on the block that those video cameras and the evidence were not removed by Lowenfield and that they were removed during the time when Mr. Lowenfield was sent packing. They just can't come. They're coming up with these fictitious things without offering any evidence. Now, Mr. Vishnu Prasad turned up there to give evidence at the Commission of Inquiry. The question is, why is Mr. Vishnu Prasad sitting there giving evidence? What is he giving evidence about? Is it about procedure? We are not here to talk about procedure. We are here to give evidence. And Mr. Vishnu Prasad was not there. He came months after, so many months after the PPP was sworn in. So what exactly is he testifying about? What exactly could he testify about? Again, this whole Commission of Inquiry is a farce. It is a big comic show. It should be on the stage of the National Cultural Center, and we should all get to watch this comedy for free. It's a comedy show. And Crawford would remember, and Davis and others would remember, I have more respect for Churchill, Leland, and Sedo. Those of you from the quarantine will know those three persons. Churchill and these guys here, these three guys. I have more respect for Churchill, Sedo, and Leland. Again, those who from the quarantine, you can type in and let me see if you know who those individuals. Churchill, Leland, and Sedo. Mr. Crawford, let's get your take on the missing video evidence now at GCOM, sir.
Mark, when you have a situation like that coming up now, we all know that Guyana is on a magnifying glass. It tells you that those in authority right now are putting the whole nation at a disrespectful spectrum because you have all of this nonsense that went down. You open an inquiry. The first thing you want to see is how this all started. Why would you destroy the evidence, knowing that there were pending petitions and all these things? These are things, arguing points that would have come up in court. The international bodies saw it. The world saw it. So when you're hiding it now, you're telling the world that the PNC were right, that the PPP are the riggers. Because why are you afraid to show the occurrences if you know you didn't do wrong, if you know you didn't breach the laws by stampeding GCOM and all the great stuff? All of this is showing the guilt of the current administration. I don't know what else the international body or the bodies need to see to, to come to a conclusion that the democracy was hijacked back in 2020. And some of them should be able to come out and say, you know what, we were wrong to be against the democratically elected government, and be man up to their faults. You can't have a tape being disappeared. Everything in your care that is supposed to shed light and give clarity is going AWOL.
Let me. I guess, are you guys hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you bits and pieces.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Let's say this: we're big people, and obviously we didn't attend the University of IFLAT, but we're big people. We're sensible people. We're not pacus. Even kids who attended Ross Nursery School under quarantine at Alnis Village, or Wellington Park Primary, or Alnis Primary, since primary day school, we would know about these sort of things. Primary day school. I see there's an individual out front parts, whatever it is sharing numbers. We're not here for that. We don't. Why are you sharing numbers? And is this a form of distraction? Please, let's don't go that route, out front parts or whatever it is. But let me ask you this here, gentlemen, and to our audience. If the coalition had something to hide, we are yet to see what that something is. But it is not the coalition people who broke down gate, broke down door, and were doing all these manner of things at GCOM, trying to get into the chairwoman's office and all manner of things, shaking down doors, beating people right there at GCOM. It's not the coalition that did that. So why would the coalition folks want to destroy, assuming that they are good, why would people want to destroy such evidence? Why? The only set of people who would want to destroy the evidence there are PPP people, to get rid of the videotapes, and now try to brazenly and without any shame blame it on coalition people. Give me a goddamn break. It is the PPP folks right there at GCOM who destroyed the evidence, who dashed away the videotapes because they didn't want that tape or those tapes to be played anywhere, whether it's at elections petition or at this farce of an elections commission, of inquiry. They're the ones who got rid of that tape. But they're trying to make Mr. Lowenfield look as though he's a bad guy. They're trying to make Roxanne Myers look as though she's a bad girl or woman, sorry. That is what they're attempting to do. They want these three persons they want to make them look as though they're the boogie people. Lowenfield is wrong. Roxanne is wrong. Mingo is, everybody is wrong. And so they're trying to pin the blame on these people with no evidence. They're trying to crucify these three people. Again, these three people are in front of the court for 2 years now. Every single time they turn up, the case is not ready, prosecutor is not ready, nobody's ready. They're wasting these people's time. They're wasting taxpayers' money. And unfortunately, they are persecuting these people. We are going to see more of the lies come out of this so-called, this farce of a commission of inquiry, only blaming individuals for dirty work that the PPP is responsible for. The video evidence is gone. It's the PPP to be blamed. The folks who were trying to allow guards and so forth from unscrupulous security firms in Guyana to enter and to go past police barriers and all manner of things, shame on those guys. So I don't buy this testimony coming from this policeman. I don't buy his testimony at all. None whatsoever. It's garbage. And I hope these three guys are watching tonight. I do hope they're watching. They are watching. And people who are familiar with those names will know who Sedo, Leland, and Churchill are. Mr. Crawford, we've got to get to our closing remarks. Please, 2 minutes for your closing remarks, please.
Mark, a point I want to make is I would like the opposition to address the issue of representation in Region 6, West Kanji and East Bank Berbice, and Lower Quarantine from Cortland to Kanji. I know those areas were supposed to be represented by us, Nicolette Henry and Geeta Chandan. I don't think it's something that you don't have coverage or meeting the people or hearing their complaints. That doesn't bode well. And when you have this long lapse, the leader is culpable. I don't care what the situation is. Our people, and I will always say, regardless if they support us or not, we need to have people on the ground to educate our citizens about issues that are affecting us daily. Because Guyana is an interdependent ethnic society. No one ethnicity will survive by itself. You're going to have a bundle of problems. We all need each other, regardless of what it is. Say what you want, and those on top, are persecuting a particular race. At the end of the day, we need each other. As the local election is coming, I think that we should have seen an everyday attack on having a new list. We are kicking the can down the road and making excuses. When the PPP is going to realize what they have to do, they will say, oh, you know what? Let's give them a new list now and change the time. That local election is set close to Pagua. That is why it's a tentative date. A lot of people are not paying attention. There are many things that are set up during celebrity times, and it's being slid under the radar. People are not paying attention on the way this administration is acting. They're pulling wools over their eyes at certain things. If you look at the couple of laws that were passed during the cricket festival, and you're seeing Rupa now, I wanted to talk about it, but it's another time. These issues are going to affect us adversely, and we are not paying attention as a nation, and we are not seeing our members of parliament going out there and educating the folks out there, regardless if it's 10 people you speak to. That message will trickle down during working or hanging out about what was said by Tom Jones. We have seen that our opposition leader, we are not having at the joint press conference. It is hurting the combined efforts. It is disrespecting the people who support the coalition. We need to see a togetherness. We need to see our opposition leader as a PNC leader in the PPP areas. Go. If you have 2 people who listen to you, that is not a problem. You made the effort. Don't just keep running around in your so-called stronghold area. If you have that covered, how are you going to improve your numbers count when you don't go and meet other people? Are they trying to tell the Guyanese citizen, you must come to me? That is a recipe for disaster, and it's a reckless behavior. It's a disrespectful behavior to the citizens. As an opposition, you do have the right to take care of all the citizens. Listen to their concern. That is how you grow. That is how you get information. That is how you broaden your knowledge and become familiar with what brings people to you. You cannot run away from them and expect them to join you and increase your numbers count. So what we are seeing here, and I'm sorry to be long-winded, what we are seeing here is the wrong choice for leadership. And many of the people who voted in December for this leader voted on emotions instead of logic. If you have Desmond Hoyt, Robert Carbing, David Granger, Joseph Harmon, Van West Charles, everybody got kicked in the ribs, and you have one common denominator. What is it that we need to see? We are playing games and using our emotions and letting the country go into a direction that is going to harm the majority of its citizens by making choices with feelings. In today's politics, strongman mentality does not win or able to rule. Look at Idi Amin. He tried the same strategy. He lasted for 8 years and was exiled into Saudi Arabia. We are not learning from history because we are running away from reading. We are running away from interpreting. We are running away from analyzing body language. We are not concerned about ourselves, much more our children and grandchildren, because we are always rushing to judgment. And this here is hurting the whole country because we don't have an opposition who can keep the PPP within check and to balance things for all of us who are not being given anything from any goods or services. And we are seeing it with the monies doling out. We are not seeing a consistent protest or speaking out about what is going on here. Selective people are being left behind. We are not seeing people approaching the Human Rights Association, showing all the biasness and all the discrimination. How are you going to support a leader? Yes, we are not going to have a perfect leader, but how are you going to support a leader when the people are not being cared for, are not being worried about? We are seeing a parallel behavior of the current administration with the current opposition. I don't care who is upset or who want to run out and talk garbage tomorrow. At the end of the day, somewhere along the line, for the last 3 years, I was never wrong about my assumption. And I'm going to reiterate again. We as Guyanese better pray that David Granger has one last run to save this country from snowballing down the hill. We do not have anybody else who will merge the two ethnic groups. This is something people need to reach out and beg Mr. Granger for one more chance. And those who are condemning him and cursing him, who have been hiding now, they need to start to publicly apologize for their rush to judgment, not knowing the facts, what happened during the election, or didn't want to believe it, for us to be a nation to turn around, or we are doomed. As Glenn Nall said, God help us. You want me to continue?
Yeah.
Yep. Look, you have done so much for 30 years for the people of Guyana, the poor people. You have offered so much advice as a man who have been in the trenches, a man who have been persecuted. You made a suggestion and had the backings to open a presidential library or a library per se on the grounds of Congress Place. That idea, you himself said it on this program, was shot down instantly without consideration. Nobody ever thought that the library would have been a way for us to grow our membership of the party, because those who are coming in to use the library would have used that same opportunity to teach and educate them about what the PNC stands for and, the direction, it's taking the country. No, we don't want anybody, young generation, to come around Congress Place to go to any library. But we have a canteen that has alcohol on Congress ground. Where are we going? When you point out the stupid actions of people, everybody get annoyed. But the members of the PNC must see that the ones that are there now are not there in their interest. They're self-serving. We cannot have representatives who do not follow the script of the constitution of the PNC to take care of its supporters. Why are we wasting time with people there that don't care? You're getting taxpayers' money, but you're not working for the people who are paying you. So it's like I am hiring somebody to do some work for me and they're not doing it and I have to pay them on a daily basis. Does it make sense economically for me? No. So what we are seeing here is a total disrespect to the people all around. The PPP are disrespecting the people and also the opposition. They're all playing games. They're not going out there. They're not forming a team. Camarades is also guilty as Norton for not being as a team player going out together. If Norton doesn't want to have a joint press conference, let it be known that I am willing to have a joint press conference so the world could see that the coalition is alive and well. And let the people understand that, hey, I'm here, I'm perfectly fine with being in a partnership, but this is the reason why the partnership does not have a representation at the end of the week or bi-weekly or monthly. So this belief that the political leaders are high and mighty and they're next to God is nonsense. They are servants of the people. They are paid by the people, and yet you're paying them and you're begging them to come and listen to your complaints. You know, I don't see the logic. I don't know why people are afraid to speak to politicians or anybody else. They are just like you and I. And you know, sometimes the more you talk to them, you'll understand that, you know, sometimes we are much richer in worth than many of the elected officials. So you know, it bothers you when you have people that are supposed to do things on behalf of their party members, and we're not seeing anything progressive. So that's my point for tonight, because I don't really want to stretch you out and I don't want to get worked up.
Thank you so much, J.R. Crawford. Appreciate your honesty, and that's what people are looking for. That's why I sat back so that you can, offer your opinion or your opinions on matters. A lot of those opinions I agree with. Some we will talk a little bit, as we oftentimes do. But let's give Mr. Caesar an opportunity for his half hour of closing remarks.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
So I start off my closing remark by first and foremost thanking the Guyanese people for actually going out to the March 2020 elections and voting. The issue of the coalition would never have brought those two petitions and fight them with the vigor that they've been fighting them with if they had rigged the elections. Now, let's go to the other side here. The PPP and their Attorney General, yes, their Attorney General. The Attorney General of Guyana is a PPP Attorney General. He only works for the PPP. He doesn't work for the entire country. Has fought vigorously for the petitions not to be heard. Now, we, like Mark said earlier, we're all grown people here. Okay? You be the judge of who is rigging here. All right? Okay. The next thing, the Guyanese people for years have lived in Guyana, whether through poverty or whether through multiple floods, through governments that have never really done anything for them, because Barjagdio started as president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, I think in 1999, maybe early 2000. He had 12 years in office. Where have Guyana progressed over those 12 years that Barry Jagdeo still thinks he have a right to have a say where Guyana is concerned? Anyhow, our people have been living in poverty for years. The international community has not come in and helped them in any way or form. It just has happened now that Guyana has struck black gold, right? So we have wealth now. We're talking about Venezuelans coming in, possibly Afghans coming in. The Haitians, they were just passing through, and they were treated like four-legged animals, mainly because of the color of their skin. The government that we have in power right now, it's a dictatorship government. It's an installed government. The people are still living in poverty. The wealth is not trickling down. Our people are still being marginalized. But I would urge the Guyanese people to continue to stay strong. And when you go to the polls, please, guys, think. Okay? Use your brain and think. Vote on issues. Vote for a government that is going to take care of your needs and your family. Vote for a government that is going to move Guyana forward. Vote for a government that would understand when they take an oath to serve the people, they should be serving the people and not government ministers and MPs running businesses on the side, who is not teacher and doing all the different things. Being in parliament is not a job to juggle. It's a standalone job. You're being paid for it. Those of you who are in parliament that have your businesses on the side, you know yourself. You need to determine whether you want to be a business person or whether you want to be a parliamentarian. Choose one and choose one quick. People of Guyana, you need to start putting pressure on these people. If they're not serving you, get rid of them. The country needs to move forward for everyone. Aubrey Compton Norton, leader of the opposition, I urge you to get your ducks lined up. Because I have a strong feeling that we're going to have an election in Guyana before 2025. Have your ducks lined up and be ready to lead. The MPs that's operating under Mr. Norton, whether you became an MP through Mr. Harmon, through Mr. Granger, or however other form you got there, also on the AFC side, remember, the leader is the leader. You're either supporting the leader 100% or you have to walk. One of the two. We can't have the inconsistencies. Okay? Also, when it comes to Ms. Geeta Chandan, the whole situation there was done very unprofessionally. They could have had a press conference where she could have spoken to the people herself and introduce an interim person who is going to be covering her duties in her time of absence. That would have been the professional thing to do. Also, if you know that you're going to be absent over a very long period of time, you should go ahead and do the honorable thing and resign. That is only right. The people cannot continue to pay Ms. Chandan for doing nothing. Okay, we're not in that business. The people need to get serious concerning their leaders. Not because Mr. Norton is your leader, he's above you. He's not above you. He's in a position of servitude. He is supposed to be serving you. I just hope that the coalition could get it right, the AP and U plus AFC. They need to come together. They need to determine whether they are going to be contesting election as a coalition. The public needs to know this. This doesn't need to be a last minute thing. We don't want any drama. Mark and Mr. Crawford, hence the reason I called for a third option. I feel like if this whole thing has been like a soap opera, we're tired of it. We need to move forward. We have oil wealth. Let's push Guyana forward. To the current installed government, we do have oil wealth. Please head into that budget and let's do some reform at GCOM. Okay? Let's get a new voters list. We shouldn't be arguing over voters list when we have a whole lot of money available to us. Somebody have to be guilty of something when we're arguing about the voters list. Okay? So let's get going. I see the PPPC government is infiltrating all the black communities, and Irfan Ali shaking hands. Well, the Bible says that a thief is a murderer. So the PPPC have stolen this election. So all you people who want to be in the villages shaking the hands of your oppressor, I think you should think twice. I think you should think about your children, your grandchildren, and future generations when you go to shake these people's hands. Not because they tell you they got to fence a ground and do a bridge for you, a wooden bridge for you that you should get, and a couple of street lights that you should jump up and, that's pittance. That's pittance compared to the amount of wealth that we have sitting in that fund in New York. Mark, I rest my case for the night.
You leave us here tonight edified a bit about where in the Bible that says a thief is a murderer.
I can't remember, Mark. I can't remember exactly where. I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
I'm not hearing
you.
Is it
that you're talking about First Peter? Is it that you're talking about First Peter or something there? But we'll talk about that some other time. I like the fact that
yes. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look.
Yeah. Don't ask some of those guys in the opposition because some of them don't believe in God. Yeah. So some of them, you guys will be surprised, who do not believe in God. But then again, it's okay. People have a right to believe and not to believe.
That's a problem.
Mr. Crawford, thank you so much for your time. Give my regards to all the people there at Alnis Village and surrounding areas. Mr. Caesar, thank you also so much for your time. I appreciate the time that you guys take to be on the show to express your views. Thank you both so much. Have a great weekend. All right, Crawford and Caesar there. Caesar is going to be back. He's going to tell us where in the Bible that says a thief is a murderer. I'd love to hear that. Like I've said, he shouldn't be asking some of those folks in the leadership of the PNC or coalition about whether they believe in a God or not. Because some of them are atheists. And like I said, people have a right to be atheists, and those who want to believe in God, it's okay. Mark Benshaw, but before I go, I know you guys want to hear much about Claudette Singh and what's the situation. Claudette Singh should do the honorable thing and resign. She is not the type of individual who should be heading that agency, the Guyana Elections Commission. She should do the honorable thing and resign. It could get very, 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 very muddy. If Claudette wants to go the route, if she wants to go the court route, it's okay. You can go the court route in Guyana. I will go the court route in the U.S. And in the U.S., we are allowed to present all of the evidence. So Claudette, you have to decide what you want to do and which route you want to go. But as of now, Claudette should be doing the honorable thing, and resign. That's all I wish to say for now. Until Monday, same place, same time, right here on Straight Up 107.1 FM. My name is Mark Benchap. I'm looking at some of your comments before I go. Thank you all for spending almost 2 hours with us. For almost 2 hours with us. I know I can't wait. I want Claudette to continue privately denying that it's her voice. I want her to privately continue to deny that those messages are actually her messages, her text messages, her WhatsApp. I want her to continue denying that privately. But what I want her to do is to deny those things publicly. Come publicly and deny them. Come on, public. Have to bring whatever I have to bring out and let the people be the judge as to who's telling the truth or not. And I know right now you're not winning that race, Claudette Singh. So the time has come for her to resign. I'm calling for her now to resign her position as chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. I'll be Monday here on 107.1 FM. Thank you guys for a wonderful week. Until then, God bless you all, and God bless our beautiful, beautiful country. Continue to pray for Guyana. It's in the hands of a bunch of demonic individuals. God bless you all.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire,
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. But not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Rise the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Rise the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Give me the one to be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the one to be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the one to be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the one to be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so. Makes so, makes so, makes so, makes so, makes so.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
right? Here. So here. I got you out back. I just played the spoiler. I know guy now. Seriously, somebody got to catch that.
Don't change the thing, will you?
Look at who's here.
You alright?
There with you. Get on the way. Come turn towards the light. Let us see. I got all y'all under my heights. One love, right? One love. They only know how far we go. They don't know this. Right? Here. So here. I got you out back. I just played the spoiler. I know guy now. Seriously, somebody got to catch that.
Don't change the thing, will you?
Look at who's here.
You alright?
Right there with you. Get on the way. Come turn towards the light. Let us see. I got all y'all under my heights. One love, right? One love. They only know how far we go. They don't know this. Right? Here. So here. I got you out back. I just played the spoiler. I know guy now. Seriously, somebody got to catch that.
Don't change the thing, will you?
Look at who's here.
You alright?
Right there with you. Get on the way. Come turn towards the light. Let us see. I got all y'all under my heights. One love, right? One love. Right? Here. So here. I got you out back. I just played the spoiler. I know guy now. Seriously, somebody got to catch that.
Don't change the thing, will you?
Look at who's here.
You alright?
Right there with you. Get on the way. Come turn towards the light. Let us see. I got all y'all under my heights. One love, right? One love. They only know how far we go. They don't know this. One love. Right? Here. So here. I got you out back. I just played the spoiler. I know guy now. Seriously, somebody got to catch that.
Don't change the thing, will you?
Look at who's here.
You alright?
Right there with you. Get on the way. Come turn towards the light. Let us see. I got all y'all under my heights. One love, right?
I will play rough. I will play rough. Sometimes you see you handleless. The man want to show you how wicked and tough. And the day they back me like with your right cuff. You want to get a chicken and you want to I step on Chichi man. Step on everything. One wicked man dance, we are dance, man, I want out the pretty man. I'll step one Chichi man. When you say you're a Chichi man.